Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center. And for more than 20 years, I've been working with accounting professionals to help them start and build successful accounting businesses. In this process, I've gotten to know a number of successful individuals. And each and every week, I try to bring on the show various experts to help you become the leader you need to be so that you can, in fact, have the premier accounting firm offering quality accounting services and getting paid what you're worth. In this case, I've got a wonderful guest. It's someone I've known for a number of years. Mitchell Levy happens to be an individual that is very dedicated to professionalism. In fact, what I would consider his coined phrase is that of credibility. And so we're going to be talking about that and how it actually applies in the accounting space, and most importantly to you as you're running your organization. So Mitchell, welcome to the show.
Roger, it's great to be here, and I so forget how much I love your radio voice.
Thank you. Thank you. So real quickly, give us a short introduction of who you are and what credibility means to you.
Well, the clients that I'm attracted to are CEOs not yet flying like eagles.
Okay.
So what that means is, think about, actually, as I'm done working with a CEO, they recognize that they work for the employees versus the other way around. So it's being credible, not just the CEO, but the staff. It's doing the right things for the customers, for the investors, for the partners. It's, in essence, living and working in a firm that you love.
Very good.
Credibility, you asked, is the quality in which you're trusted, known, and liked. Now, the reason I say trust, know, like versus the traditional phrase know, like, trust is the first thing that happens when somebody sees your firm or sees an employee of your firm is, do I trust that this person can do what they say they're going to do? That happens in the first 3, 4, 5 seconds. Their decision to make it to decide if they want to spend more time with that person will come after that first trust nugget. And then as they're getting to know them, they'll either trust them a little bit more and like them a little bit more and then want to spend more time.
Beautiful. So what's one of the most common misunderstandings someone has of what it is you do and how credibility matters in their business?
I love this question. And I just figured out when you and I were talking that I'm going to say things different. So if it seems like I'm looking up, for those in the podcast, I occasionally look up visually. There's no screen I'm looking to. It's just I'm visually going in my head trying to figure out what's the right thing to say. And that's a great question. What's really important is that credibility is a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
And so what's the thing people get wrong? They think they could do one thing and be credible. Right? You either you get your name written up in the local newspaper or a TV broadcast, or somebody promises you spend X amount of dollars and then all of a sudden you're credible. It doesn't work that way. It's particularly if we're talking about your program. You go through your program and you've learned a lot. And now it's the continual practicing of being credible. It's the journey where you can continue to have those strong values that makes a person, that makes a firm credible.
So when you're working with individuals and you're talking about credibility, what advice do you have for someone to understand how it is easily obtained in the sense of understanding it, but also implementing it? How does someone just kind of welcome that into their profession? And this is my persona. I'm going to be a credible individual and I'm going to deliver on that.
By the way, thank you for leading the witness in a good way. There's a program that's part of what you do called the CPOP.
Yeah.
CPOP stands for Customer Point of Possibilities. Now, what's interesting is, imagine you've had people say, who are you? What do you do? Or you've asked that to other people and it's taken 5, 10, 15 minutes to respond. So imagine if you could say who you are and what you do in 5 seconds, 3 seconds or less, basically less than 10 words. What happens when you have a CPOP, and when you said, who am I said it up front. Mine was 6 words. CEOs not yet flying like eagles. That's the playground I play in. And so part of the program, we have an hour course that we've bundled into what you do that is essentially that playground, that place that you play. By the way, if work does not equal play, it's probably time to find another profession. If you're hiring people who don't love what they do, it's probably not the right hire, right? So what happens is, if you can articulate that, what that represents for you is your compass. If you have a compass, then you're making decisions by the North Star of your compass. And if you're doing that, you're also demonstrating behavior that's in alignment with your compass. And so what happens is, I want to see when I meet somebody, I want to feel, if I'm meeting in person, I want to feel their energy. I want to know what they do. I want everything they do to be around their compass. When I then see how they show up when they're not in the room. So when I see how they show up when either their websites or their social media, if there's a disconnect there, to me, that shows a lack of integrity. And whether or not it's the external integrity, they're looking poorly, or in terms of who they are and what they say and what they act on, internal integrity. And so those are things that are, you asked, what's the easy button? The easy button is being able to articulate who you are. It's the who and the what. The CPOP is who and what. Who you serve and what, and the what is either what is the pain point you're helping to alleviate, or what is the pleasure point you're helping to deliver. And that's what you do in 10 words or less. So if you can articulate in 10 words or less the who or what, and then build everything else you do around that, then you show up in the world credible. It's the I'm going to say it's the simple button, not always easy to do.
Perfect. One of the things that I really appreciated when I first met you was this whole CPOP experience. You specifically asked me, what's my CPOP? And it was working with accounting professionals to help them have the premier accounting firm in their area, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what they're worth. I mean, that is exactly what I want to emphasize as I'm working with individuals. And with your question, it becomes very clear that so often so many people cannot communicate what that CPOP is. What is that unique selling proposition they're bringing to the marketplace for their customers? Now, here's where I want to go a little deeper with you, though.
Well, by the way, do you realize you said more than 10
words?
So,
I do.
I forgot to look up your CPOP.
My simple one is I help individuals have the premier accounting firm in their area. So I don't know how many words that is.
Hey, can we play a little bit with this?
Play with it.
So when you say individuals, is that your...
It's the accounting professionals.
Okay. So it's accounting professionals. So the who, accounting professionals.
That's right.
And either the pain point, it sounds like a pleasure point. So it's accounting professionals wanting the premier accounting organization, or what, is that how you would?
The business, yes. They're wanting to offer quality services and they want to get paid what they're worth. So we refer to that as a total, the premier accounting firm.
Got it. So if I was going to CPOP that, accounting professionals wanting the premier accounting firm. Let's see, accounting professionals wanting the premier accounting firm. 7 words.
That works.
Right, because then what happens is when you say that up front, then when somebody says, what does that mean? What is the premier accounting firm? Then you say all the other stuff.
Yeah, because they want to, out of curiosity, understand what that phenomenal statement was that you just shared.
Yeah, do you want to try? Just tell me that 7-word CPOP sounded really good to me.
Yeah, working with accounting professionals to have the premier accounting firm.
Can you do it? Would you mind doing it without the working with? So it's just start with this, by the way. The hardest thing when I first started, it's really easy for me now, but when I was doing the interviews, it took me 3 weeks to not add anything about me. So what you want to do is just start with accounting firms, because it's who, it's not, because when you think about a CPOP, when you think about the playground, notice when I say mine, I start with CEOs.
Yeah.
Just go CEOs. And then I put in the not yet. Actually, while you're thinking about yours, because it's going to take a second to do, I put in not yet. Some people go, Mitchell, you should have 4 words. CEOs flying like eagles. It's 4 words. It's amazing. Let's do the and. Let's just say that all CEOs think they already fly like eagles, so that doesn't capture their attention. Most humans think they're already accountable. I got statistics on that. And most humans already think they're credible, and statistics will tell otherwise. And so I put in the not yet as a pattern interrupt. So CEOs not yet flying like eagles allows the CEO to go, what is he? Maybe I should think about that a little bit more. So for you, accounting firms wanting the premier accounting.
Well, no, I'd say accounting professionals building the premier accounting firm.
Oh, accounting professional. Like it. Try it one more time.
Accounting professionals building the premier accounting firm.
That is amazing. Tell me more.
That's exactly where we want to go. Yeah, it's that curiosity that then causes the dialogue, but now I'm not imposing on them. They're genuinely asking, and that's where the conversation starts.
We've been taught to to throw things in people's faces. We've been taught, as if you're a salesperson, trying to sell the accounting, 50 calls, you're making 50 calls a day, right? And what happens, it's more about the experience. It's more about the interaction. It's more about getting somebody on the other side to recognize that you care about them. So if you actually present an opportunity like this, where you're presenting that place that you play, they're going to go, if they are one of two people, they could be a prospect or they could be a referral partner. I always talk as if the person on the other side is a referral partner. As a matter of fact, even in the green room, although I guess it's a black curtain, even in the green room prior to us talking, I was like, oh, Roger, there's some opportunities I've got going on. Let's talk about referral partner opportunities. And that's where I always think about the best place to play with others. So if you have a playground, what you're doing is you're looking for the referral partners to then refer the people to take your services, to be with you, to play with you in some way.
I love it because it's an opportunity mindset. It's what more can we do together? It's I think, a very positive place to be. So that's very good. All right. So knowing a little bit of your journey, I'd like you to share why this credibility matters. I know that you were interviewing a number of executives and successful individuals, and through that journey, I think you learned quite a bit. Share with us what that was and how credibility came out of it.
So I've been in Silicon Valley for 35 years, happily married for 33, have a son who's about 25. And in Silicon Valley parlance, he is successfully launched and a good man. And I've started 20 odd companies. I've sat in the firm of a NASDAQ company. And one of the companies that I was working at and made a lot of money on and had fun doing was a book publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the CPOP there, are you ready? Business professionals wanting book credibility, right? So that implies a lot.
Yeah.
Now, around 2018, 2019, as Amazon has completely democratized book publishing, I was thinking, what's next? And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe what's next is something. And I wasn't quite sure. And one day I woke up, I go, what's next is credibility. I got to learn more about credibility. I thought I was credible. The day after that, I woke up and I thought of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
Mitchell Levy, you got to interview 500 thought leaders on credibility. Now, I thought I was doing it to get a book. I did get the book. About 11 months through, I got a life purpose. Now, Roger, I didn't realize I needed a life purpose. I thought I had one. Get married, have kids, had one, create jobs, go on holiday, live a blessed life in some way or another. And what ended up happening is that 98% of the professionals, of the thought leaders I interviewed, could not immediately articulate their CPOP. And even you, Roger, even though we've talked about it and it's just so easy because the rest of the world wants you to say delivering or serving or I help or we help. And I realized that not only do I know how to help others articulate their CPOP, but I could teach others to help others. And if I could teach others to be able to create CPOPs, then something very interesting happens. That just means we haven't been taught this. If we haven't been taught this, then what else about credibility have we not been taught? And so that's why I ventured on. So July of 2020 is when I completely transformed who I was.
Uh-huh.
October is when I did the first summit on credibility. We had about 800 people. And then since then, I've been playing, and the world is against. I'm going to say the world's against what I'm doing. I call the opposite of credible dubious. And there are just more and more dubious people and more dubious behaviors. And the reason for dubious is I wanted an arch enemy that wasn't necessarily bad. It's not like heaven or hell. It's not black or white. Or in this country, it's not about red or blue, right? It's about doing something that may not be, for instance, me not remembering your CPOP is a little bit dubious. So thanks for remembering, right? You don't think that way, but I think that way. I should have looked ahead of time. So I'm thinking, oh man, I didn't do a good job. I need to make sure if I've worked with somebody before not to do that again. That was a mental note to Mitchell. And so this is exciting for me because of the absolute simplicity. When I'm talking with somebody, it's so easy to feel whether or not they're they're credible, and largely that means that they're accountable. They have integrity. They have the intent and commitment to do the right thing. There are 10. I think I've sent these to you before, but there are 10 values of credibility, and they actually ooze it. They echo it. It just comes out that the employees say similar things that they say, not the same words, but similar things that they say. And it is so amazingly simple. Absolutely not easy. Can I give you one more statistic, which always blows me away? So I've now helped over 1,000 people get their CPOPs. And a lot of times what happens is when you have this is the playground you play in. It's the frequency of the words which represent you. And in the meeting, when we're talking, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Same thing when you and I have talked and Mitchell, this is really it. And then somewhere between 2 hours and 2 weeks, 90%, so 900 people have forgotten it. Now, they haven't really forgotten it. What happened is society has pushed them back to a dubious answer of, oh, wait, you're forgetting to say that this is what you do. You're forgetting to say delivering or serving or whatever. And they jump back into that behavior. So a sharp thing that somebody who was a marketing person pointed out to me about 2 months ago is, Mitchell, you need to focus on the 10%. I'm like, oh yeah, that seems pretty obvious. What I want to do is be able to grow the 10% versus be able to reduce the 90%, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Yeah. The reason why this resonates with me is because of clarity. I think it's very important for, at least in the accounting world, for us to be a little bit more specific as to what are the services we're offering to our clients, how they benefit, what are they paying for. And with the CPOP, I think it just is in line with that whole idea of if we can more intentionally, clearly communicate what it is that we offer as a service and how they benefit our clients, it's going to be a happy, healthy relationship, I think, for everyone. So in asking or saying that, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel credibility applies to the accounting professional, especially to the owner of an accounting firm?
Well, first, I was shotgunning big approach, big theory. You just did a really amazing rifle shot. And that is, if you're owning an accounting firm, here's the problem. If I sit on the board of a NASDAQ firm, and when we're looking to replace our accounting firm, right? The question is, what are we looking for? Now, when I'm looking for companies which are growing, so I sit on the boards of a number of startup firms. If we're looking for the accountant firm, what are we looking for, right? And depending on where we want to go, we want to look for the right accounting firm. The problem is accounting firms don't make it easy, right? If you focus on SaaS, for instance, and you focus on the recurring revenue and churn and all those sort of things, which have very interesting rules in behind the scenes, that's a level of expertise. And if that's where your primary focus is, I want to hear that up front. I want to see it. I want to see credibility. I want to see customer testimonials on the website. I want to see that this is who you are and what you do. And so the thing to be thinking about in today's world where we have so much information, so much data, and particularly with ChatGPT being able to replace most of what accounting firms can do. Wait, did I actually say that out loud? Yes, ChatGPT can replace most of what you do, maybe all of it. So the question becomes, how do you make yourself relevant? You make yourself relevant when you're credible. How do you be credible? It's trust, know, like. How do you be trusted? Your referral partners who now know who you are and can remember you because you've given them 6, 7 words. They remember you, they're going to refer you. When they refer you, they're passing along their trust, right? And when they find out that when they get to know you better and they realize that this really is what you do, and if you love what you do, so they actually like working with you or love working with you. So that's the credibility. It's trust, know, love, and having referral partners who can refer you because you're the right fit for the client they're going after. So the more focused you could be on the specialty, the easier it is for someone to want to refer you, for a client or a prospect to be able to go after you as an entity because you just have made it very obvious because you're solving their particular need.
I love that. That's so good. Now, I want to go a little deeper into your comment of being on the boards of some of these companies. What is one of the frustrations you as a board member have when working with the accounting professionals? Where do you feel that they are not delivering as you need on the board to run the business? What's missing?
Good question. Thanks for throwing something I hadn't thought about before. You know, when you're thinking about services like having lawyers, when you're thinking about services like having accountants, what we often think about is when we're doing a board session where we're planning, we want to actually bring someone smart on the inside and go, hey, what do you think about this? If we went this direction, what are the problems we're going to bump into? If we went this other direction? And what we're really looking for is we want a thought partner. We want somebody who we could trust that we know we're getting an answer that is in our best interest, not their best interest. And there are firms that we've worked with at different boards I've been at. It's when you have to question the answer because it looks like it might put more of their people on staff and you're not sure if that's the right answer, that feels uncomfortable. So we're really looking for trusted thought partners.
So I like that because I asked, what do you dislike? And you went into what you're looking for, because that was going to be my next question. What is it that you feel you need on the board from the accounting department, from the accounting professional, from that firm in order for you to move forward? So you've alluded to finding new firms. What are you looking for in them? What do you need from them? And you kind of answered that. It's that forecasting, the ability to do various scenarios, get insights as to if the direction of the company were to change and we went this direction, can you forecast out for us what that might look like? And that adaptation is powerful. So if a firm is able to deliver those different scenarios, that would be very important to you. Would you agree?
Do you mind if I'm going to say the yes and?
Okay.
Because there's an implication of the common language you use that I may be interpreting in a different way.
Okay.
So for me, what I don't like, we'll just say, is somebody who feels like they're giving it the answer in their vested interest.
Okay.
Doesn't feel credible.
Yeah.
What I do like, I actually want somebody who's smart. I don't want somebody to just do the books. I don't want just accounting.
Thank you.
I would like to have somebody who could say, hey, based on these numbers, oh, by the way, do you realize in this part of your business that your margins are significantly lower than this other part, even though you're touting one side versus the other? What's going on here? Is there an opportunity for reduce? I have to tell you, with ChatGPT, the opportunity to completely transform every business is so high that it's time to actually look in to see what's your core products, where you're going to focus, where should you be making money, and where should you do things because it's a good, valuable service and it's going to lead to your higher end products. I want a partner, a thought partner in the accounting firm I'm working with to help me make those decisions.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing in this artificial intelligence, whether it be chat or let's say Bard. There's a variety of different ones out there on the market and coming soon. So let's just talk in generic terms, regardless of whichever they are. You're speaking to how it may threaten the accounting profession, and I'm hearing you and others are communicating the same thing. I'm going to push back, and I'd like to see your response. My pushback is I agree that the wealth of information and the speed by which it can do the work is astounding. However, I believe that the business owners, the boards, what they're looking for isn't a computer screen and a typer and a keyboard to type questions. They're looking for still that human that they can communicate with that can perhaps help them ask of the AI the right questions. And I believe the role of the accounting professional is still going to exist only because of the fact that they are the interpreter of the language of business, accounting. And as the interpreter, I believe every board, every business owner is still going to be leaning on that expert to actually help them understand and utilize the information that's coming from the accounting system. So the work might accelerate, the insights might become greater, but the role of the accountant, although it may be changing, will still be relevant. How do you feel about that?
There's at least 10 different questions in that small segment you just went on. So as humans, we hope that in whatever profession we're in, that we're still wanted. Because within 6 months, the opportunity to have an avatar that will, as opposed to typing in questions, an avatar that can look like a Roger Knecht and sound like a Roger Knecht, but be your avatar, will be here it's there in some programs today.
Yes,
Will
yes.
be there universally for everybody.
Yes.
Okay. So although you're physically not in a room until we get 3D holographic imaging, right? We still are feeling that. So is there, if it actually is Roger Knecht and you've trained this aspect of the computer to think, act, and be like you, is that a good thing when you're not in the room? Maybe the answer is yes, right? Here's what's interesting. We have the ability to look at the wealth of information in the world and then be able to look at it in specifically how our companies are focused. So as an accounting professional working with clients, you can now take these numbers and specifically focus on the industry that the firm is in and do things with artificial intelligence that you've never been able to do before.
True.
Right? So you could feed it in. Here's the characteristics of the company I'm working with. Here are characteristics of competitors, known and not known. How does my company stand out? What should I be doing differently? What are some ways that we should be playing? In the past, we'd go to people in the back room, crunching, thinking, spending time. Now we have a computer who can actually do this, whether it's ChatGPT or some other firm, some other product. It's easy for us to get at that information. So the question becomes, when something comes back, are we being discerning enough? I'm going to say the answer is, in general, humans are not discerning enough. It's very clear if you look at presidential elections, red and blue and misinformation that's communicated, and one side is so much in belief and the other side is so much in belief that we're not discerning. That's part of what we need to teach ourselves. For every accountant, for every owner who owns an accounting firm, your job is to be discerning. Your job is to allow your people the ability to be discerning. And when they see stuff that looks funny, to ask, to question, to start asking in different ways, to start formatting. That's what I'm going to be looking for in the accounting firms that I work with going forward is, hey, these numbers look like they're too good to be true. Tell me why they're not so good. Let's look at those. Let's explore those. Because when you spend time drilling down, there's an opportunity as you're drilling down into these AI solutions to give different answers based on the input you give. And that is what's necessary to be discerning, to be focused. That's where you're going to come into play and have the expertise to show that you are still relevant, to show that you are credible and should be part of the firms that the firms I work with will outsource to.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to kind of elaborate on something that I said and complement what you were just saying. I do believe the roles are going to change. I do believe the accounting profession needs to evolve. However, where I believe the relevance still exists is, even though the bookkeeping, the audit, the accounting, the tax, although those things may become automated and perhaps capable of the AI at some point, where the individual, the human, still needs to exist. And even though people that are building these AI systems admit this, is that one, it's going to become the power of the questions that are being asked of it. And therefore, the accounting professional is going to be able to help the business owner or the board ask the right questions of the AI. So no longer is the accountant expected to have all the answers. They're better asking the right questions. So they need to know what questions to ask to get the wealth of information from that AI that it's able to deliver. But the second thing that is most important, and I think least understood, is, as I understand it, in the AI world, whichever platform, they have a problem that they refer to as hallucinations. I can't even say the word. It's hallucinating.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, I know. And so when it hallucinates, what it does is the AI, for some reason, actually creates false facts. It declares something as if it's real, when in reality, it's entirely made up. And we as humans have to be able to discern what those things are, because it's making things up and yet presenting them as if they're truths. And so as we start using more and more of the AI system, we're going to have to become better at discerning what those truths are. And that's going to be a powerful thing. And until the hallucinations can be discerned and easily identified, we have to kind of comb through and find those things. So that's something that I would add to this. So I'm not feeling as if there's a big change on the horizon in the sense that we're going to be less relevant. I jokingly refer to accounting as being the second oldest profession, and I think it's going to be around still for a while.
Well, so it's interesting. First, on the hallucinations that occur, it's because you haven't asked the right question. Sometimes you need to put in double quotes, real. Mm-hmm. right? Because otherwise it'll feel the opportunity that it could fill in the blank with stuff that it makes
It still
up,
has that creative
right?
tone.
So
Yeah.
it has a creative tone, which is really good. But the accountant needs to determine what's creative and what's not.
Yeah.
Let me make a statement. Information is information is no longer valuable. This is a really strong statement.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to come into a meeting and have all the papers and crunch numbers and all that stuff, no longer valuable. What's valuable is asking the right question.
Mm-hmm.
Because the information is at your fingertips with the right tool, right platform, right information that you've fed into the artificial intelligence solution you're working with. It's being able to be discerning, to question, to be able to use. And so you want to be successful going forward, you need to partner with the business owner, and by helping the business owner ask the right questions, and to be able to even allow the business owners to be thinking about their business in a different way based on the questions that you've helped the business owner think about.
I love it. Yeah, it comes back, in my opinion, to the questions. We need to be better at asking the right questions. So
and this is not what we're
powerful.
taught in school.
It's not. No, we're actually taught in school to still memorize and have information, but the information is irrelevant. You can say whatever you want, and I can instantly on my phone Google check you. And at the end of the day, I have the answers. I can go to the year, the month. I can give you the numbers. All those things are fact checkable, and assuming that they're right, I don't need to memorize them. I don't have to know them. I can have access to them very readily now. It's the right questions. Where do I go to find the right answers and so forth? So great conversation.
There's a mic somewhere we could drop, but
Boom.
I'm not sure.
Boom. All right. So here's the next question. For you in your space, as you're working with all these successful individuals, share with us a takeaway that you had. I know that you at one point were kind of identifying whether or not someone was arriving on time, early or late, but what were some of those other qualifiers that you learned were quite apparent as you interacted or spoke with these successful individuals?
Would you mind drawing that down? I mean, that's very easy because when you interview 500 people, it's very easy to come up with a significant number of statistics. And if that's what you do, I could just rattle off a bunch super quickly.
Rather than statistics,
tell me what
I'm more. So you brought up Napoleon Hill earlier.
Right.
He obviously spoke with all these successful people and wrote
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
In writing the book, he didn't necessarily provide a whole bunch of statistics. What he showed are characteristics. And so what I'm just kind of curious to know is, in your experiment and in meeting and speaking with all these people, what were some of your personal takeaways or ahas?
I got it. Okay. The part of what I like to say here is, for many of us, we had a mom or a grandma who taught us I'm putting up for the podcast, I'm doing the double quote, the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to come prepared to any meeting, to come early to any meeting, to come with your heart so you're joyous. And that's not what we typically do. I had in the interviews, I had people come late to a live podcast. I had people come within 3 minutes of the podcast starting, so we're scrambling at the end. I had people come after the start of their live podcast. So think about this, Roger, where you're being interviewed by the global credibility expert on your credibility, and you think it's okay to come after the live start time, right? Because to them, they've been taught that credible means that I have a lot of meetings. And if I have a lot of meetings, one could run late. If one runs late, they all run late. And instead of what they're saying to themselves, I'm really credible, they huff and puff, and I got lots of meetings, what they should be saying to themselves, I've been rude to all of these other people. Because if you continue being rude, you continue to show your disrespect for them. If you show disrespect, they start not liking you. If they don't like you, they're going to go to your competitor who has now an equal playing field at having access to the other AI tools that are out there. And so what's going to win in the future? When people actually trust, know, and love you. And I'm using love. Do I love my accountant? Actually, in this case, family member, I love my accountant. My previous accountant, I did not love because he did not have my best interest in heart. He had his interest in heart. And that felt uncomfortable, right? When I figured that out. And so being able to be at the state where you really, truly know the human that you're working with, Now that we have, because if I'm dealing with Roger Knecht, the avatar versus Roger Knecht, I need to know when it's you, and I need to know where you're coming from and what you feel like. And I think when we were setting up today's meeting, I let you know when I was starting off. I let you know when I was in the building. I just felt like it was important because you had spent time, money, and energy for you to be here and having the right staff around. Right. And we normally don't think about that. Right. When we're thinking about hiring an accounting firm, we don't think about what goes on behind the scenes. All we care about is the person who's going to come and see us and are they prepared and are they doing the right thing. And that's your job. So if you run an accounting firm, the focus that you have as an owner is to make sure you do the right thing for your clients. And if you end up having work where AI has allowed you to significantly produce a product quicker and faster, even after being discerning, maybe you go back to your clients and say, hey, listen, we're going to charge you less. Now, let me tell you what else we can do for you if you want, but we're going to charge you less for this. Because if you don't, your competitors will.
Thank you for that. I'm going to take that and actually switch gears on you. I'm going to go a little personal. How do you feel your interactions with your friends and family has changed because of this epiphany of yours?
Personal. I'm trying to come up with a good example. I've always lived out loud, Roger. Thank you. It took me a second to sort of have something pop into my head. What's happened so I did a TEDx. I think you've seen that.
Yeah,
it's called We're Losing Our Humanity, and I'm tired of watching it happen. It was the 28th most popular in 2021. I introduced the word dubious.
Yes.
So my family members now feel if I do something that is dubious that they can call me on it. And it's great. So what I've done is I've given permission to those around me to be my accountability partners. And if I do something, and we'll all do something dubious. If I'm going to come late to any sort of family event, my wife says, honey, you're being dubious. We got to go now. We don't want to, like, okay, honey, got to go. Right. And so part of it is if we're living out loud and we're living credibly, there are things that are important to us and we want those in our life to be accountability partners for us. And for me, I've gotten quite a few.
Good. So again, on the personal note, you've obviously had a very successful professional career. You've run and operated very good businesses, sold them. You've had this amazing drive with the books. What do you trust that your son's taken from watching you do all this? How do you feel it's impacted him, and what do you hope that he's learned from you?
He's amazing. Although I think he's gotten a whole lot from my wife, who's probably she's a great, credible example of humans to interact with. One of the things that was amazing with my son, he just came back. He's close to 25. He just came back from spending 10 days in Japan. And he made the decision himself. He's got a job. He's paid for it himself. He had a great time. And he made friends in a way that's more than just friendship, right? He's made friends in a way that he's going to go visit his now new auntie and uncle. He's invited back to one of the people's house who lives in Japan anytime he comes out there. And he doesn't always do it credibly with his parents because, that's what kids are supposed to do. But with other people, he always puts the other person first. He really does focus on showing up in such a way where he's a servant leader and adds value to other people in his lives. And we couldn't be prouder.
I love it. So what is one of the most misunderstood things about you as you have this persona that you actually emulate?
For those who have seen me in Silicon Valley over the 35 years, I have morphed at least 4 times.
Okay.
And so if you haven't seen me for 5 years, you still think I'm a book guy. I still do books. 10 years, you still think I'm an e-commerce guy. And depending on who you are, I guess the misunderstood is, who is Mitchell today?
Okay.
Right. And it's sometimes hard for people to, probably the biggest issue I have is I have these amazing tools. And Roger, you saw me when I said, hey, I've got this 1-hour course. It helps people really articulate the who and the what. Would you like to use it? There was zero hesitation when you said yes. But you're an anomaly. You're an anomaly because you and I understand each other, and you know that this is for the good of, for me, I think it's for the good of the world. I want to do it with you so that you can do a better job with supporting your client base. We're not taught this way. So I don't know if it's just the Mitchell Levy. It's the focus that humans have of the expression, you can quote me, but what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine is what we're taught. And when I come into a room and I'm there to be of service, for instance, I was just with a bunch of CEOs, and with one of the CEOs, I was hearing him. He was all over the place in terms of what he did, but I gave him a CPOP that was 6 words. Now, he was clearly in the 10%. The reason I would say that, he goes, Mitchell, do you realize you just gave me what most people would charge between $10,000 and $25,000, even though I only spent 5 minutes doing it? Because most people would hang this out and charge me between $10,000 and $25,000 for what you just gave me. Now, here's what he recognized. He recognized how transformative this will be for the rest of his life. If you could actually live within the framework of that, it's powerful. Most of the time, the misunderstanding is people think, oh, that's a marketing ploy. That's a branding thing, and marketers do that. And you're a great marketer. You're great with words. Yes, I happen to be great with words, but Roger, what happens when somebody actually gets their CPOP, it really is the frequency in which they vibrate. That's not words we typically use in the accounting profession. Mm-hmm. It just so happens when you wake up in the morning and if you love what you do and you spend the entire day and you love what you do and you go to bed and you're like, man, this was a good day, you're vibrating. Well, what are those words that it represents that playground you play in? And when I talk to somebody and they get it, they're like, wow. So probably the biggest misunderstanding is just that I can see this in people versus, Mitchell, that's a good marketing thing you just gave me.
Yeah, you definitely make it personable. So I like that. And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I feel as accounting professionals, sometimes we can be perceived by others in a certain light, and yet we're very approachable, personable, friendly, and not to say that we're not seen that way. I'm just trying to say that I'm asking you this question at a personal level because I believe sometimes we feel that we're misunderstood individually.
Tell me how. What do you think? What do you think is the biggest misperception for accountants?
One of the things that I would suggest is at a very high level, accounting professionals seem unapproachable. In the sense that they're, like if you're a CPA, you're very intellectual, therefore there's a lot of knowledge in your mind, and it's not a personable type profession. It's not people focused, where I would push back and say it's entirely not true. Accounting needs to be a personable business. You're working with, in many cases, for the business owners particularly, the most intimate thing for them. It's their finances, their business revenue, and it's a very personal thing, emotional thing. And I think too often it's seen not as emotional, and yet it is. So that's where I feel that there's maybe a misunderstanding. It's numbers, they're quantifiable, they're abstract. So all of a sudden, I'm now putting an emotional connection to those because I think people are making emotional decisions as they go to bed, whether they have enough money to make payroll, whether or not they have enough money to pay for the next payment or dividends or whatever the situation may be. The business owner has those stresses, and those are emotions that they're dealing with that are all tied to the accounting that we're providing. No accountant, in my opinion, feels good going to their client and saying you owe tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in taxes. That's not a thing we ever want to communicate, but that's our job to basically calculate the numbers and tell the business owner this is what they owe. And the accounting professional doesn't have to come up with the revenue, but the business owner does. They've got to figure out, where am I going to find this money to pay Uncle Sam? And that's a very emotional experience for a lot of people.
Do you mind? You just gave me this massive aha moment.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Can I try something I've never tried before?
Please go ahead.
2 nights ago, I shot a video, a 10, 12-second video, and yes, for TikTok. And it started off looking at a piano, and then it panned to a schoolroom, a classroom.
Uh-huh.
And then it went back to the piano. So now let's equate to the piano being music, right? So the music is, you wake up in the morning, you love what you do, and then you go to the classroom, and what we've been taught in the educational, if you're an accountant, you know knowledge and you have to give facts. And you're not a good human. You're just somebody who stamp the buttons of what's right and what's wrong. What if that's wrong? What if that's not the way? What if what we were taught is not the way you should be? What if the way you were taught was the way Roger just mentioned it? That the music that plays can continue as you pan through the classroom, and what you should be learning is how to actually, if you're an accounting firm working with a client, how could you play the same music that the firm wants to play? And if you could get in that rhythm and deliver back what you're doing with the numbers, what the firm, what the business owner wants to do with the numbers, because you as an accounting professional, you opened up and started showing who you really were. And when you pan back, so now you're trained to think about musically, emotionally, to feel the things that the business owner is feeling. When you actually are delivering and interacting the answers, the business owner is feeling that you're emotionally connected. To me, that's credibility. That's trust. That's knowing and loving the people you work with. And truthfully, Roger, I want to, anyone who works with me, I want to be able to say, hey, I love this person. I'm getting exactly what, even if it's bad news, if it's done in a way that I feel it's truthful and makes sense, I want to hear it.
Yeah. One of the things that I really kind of emphasize is what we refer to as the wisdom pyramid. And it's recognizing that merely bringing to the client raw data or information in the sense of reports, P&Ls, balance sheets, and so forth, all of a sudden what happens is the business owner is not getting what they need to make informed business decisions. They've got data or numbers in front of them. What they need is knowledge. They need to know how this applies to them. And as accounting professionals, if we can step into the role of being a translator, an interpreter, and help them take what they're seeing in this language of accounting and see how it applies to them as they're running their business, they're going to now have knowledge that they can use to make more informed business decision. And as you have that experience time and time again, month after month, quarter after quarter, in time, the business owner is going to have another sense of wisdom that they can use to run their business more intelligently. And that's all because the accountant chose to go beyond just providing the reports, the information, the data, to actually helping the business owner see how it's relevant. And now you're taking everything that the business owner is experiencing that's historical and seeing how it applies to the future. And that's really where I feel the accounting profession has so much to offer, but too often doesn't shine. It doesn't take it to that level. And that's what my mission is in one way is to empower the voice of the accounting professional to get passionate again about their work, impassioned about what that can do to the business. And that's where it gets fun. That's the creativity. That's where you start doing, like you said at the very beginning, preparing numbers to show scenarios, forecasts of if we did this, how this would impact or affect the business. That's exciting to me.
So, Roger, we're working with an author in the medical profession, and the title of the book is "Do You Speak Patient?" And it goes back to what happens in hospitals where you have the doctor only has X amount of time and they feel like it's more like cattle than humans. So what you're saying is, do you speak accountant? Do you speak human? Do you speak in a way that you can tell a story for the client? Because if you don't, you know how easy it is to feed all the information into ChatGPT and say, tell me a story of where this company is going. And now tell me a story that vertically allows me to go into these vertical markets with this level of penetration. And where is the company going? That's a question. That's a prompt. I can ask ChatGPT today. If you're not asking that, if you're not delivering that as an accounting professional, I'm going to go somewhere else. So when I ask that question, how am I interpreting it? As a business owner, I may not be able to interpret it as well as you can. That's a great void. So do you speak accountant?
There you go. So here's the next question for you. All these conversations that you had, give me a favorite. What was and it doesn't even have to be of the 500 you spoke with. It could be someone else. Who in your life has been that influential person that's really helped you be that great business person, that wonderful husband, that wonderful human that you are?
It's always hard to pick a favorite. I've got two,
please,
that are fun.
Okay.
One was actually during the interviews, and it was actually an interview that didn't happen.
Okay.
So as an NSA professional, so a National Speaker Association person who gets $35,000 in engagement, and when I said, "What's your CPOP?" he sort of gave what you gave, right? This 30-second long CPOP. I said, "Hey, most of our guys are saying this in somewhere around 3 to 4 seconds. Can you shorten it?" And then he shortened it to 15 seconds. And then I said, "Would you mind if I do a little bit of coaching?" Now, I asked you that. You said, "Of course." He said, "Yes, I do." He says, "I have my way of doing things, and you apparently have yours, and I don't want to learn yours." Well, up until that point, I only had 9 values of credibility. I added one more: coachability. If you're not coachable in today's world, no matter who is in front of you, you're missing the boat. You're not credible. So that was a great, for me, it's a memorable for the rest of my life conversation, because it taught me this is a person who up until a certain point in time was very successful. He makes $35,000 a speech, but we don't want people standing on the stage saying, from a dictator perspective, "I have the only answer, and you may not have answers that work." Right? So that was one.
Interesting. Okay. And your second?
The second one was, there's a woman by the name of Cheryl Lynn. Her particular focus in life is joy. And so we had an hour conversation about joy, which, by the way, is quite joyful. And at the end of the conversation, she gave me, she said something. And it was one of those, like the Napoleon Hill thing. The next morning I woke up, because when I put the 10 values together, the only value of the 10 that's listed twice is integrity. So under the pillar of being known, there's integrity. Under the pillar of being trusted, there's integrity. I didn't actually know why. I just knew that it kept popping up over and over again. So here it is, Cheryl Lynn. We had an hour-long conversation. It was enjoyable. And at the end, she goes, "Mitchell, do you realize that happiness is on the outside and joy is on the inside?" That's what I did. I go, "No, you're right." I woke up the next morning and I knew why integrity was there twice. The integrity associated with being trusted is what you show to the outside world. So as an accounting firm, it's what you show on the website. It's coming in with, all with the suits on and all ready to go. So it's your external integrity. Under being known, it's your internal integrity. Who are you? When you show up in the world, do you hold the door open for somebody, or are you mean to the wait staff, or do you cheat on your spouse? Right? That lack of internal integrity comes through. And I realize the importance of having integrity twice, because somehow as humans, we can justify saying something different externally than we act internally. And with today's world, that's no longer possible.
That's true. You've got to have that integrity, both internal and external. I like that. All right. I'm going to make this a little bit more fun and take this to another level. This is kind of off the wall. If you live anywhere in the world, what would it be and why?
Depends who you ask. If you ask me, I'm really happy. So what we do, Roger, we typically rent a house in Europe for a month.
Okay.
And invite for once a year, typically summer times, although now we've moved to the fall. Now, once my son has graduated, we now move to the fall. To me, that's amazingly fun.
Yeah.
Now, if my wife had her way, we would live most of the time in some European city.
Interesting.
Old school philosophy. old world, the way people are. I think what she loves most is the community aspect associated.
Interesting.
That trust, that love, the knowing other people in the room, the feeling comfortable. When my son was 2 years old, we took him to Italy, and we ended up long set of train rides. We ended up getting on a train where there were no seats. My wife and I were standing, in the train where there's the between the two compartments, and we had tons of luggage. So here I'm sitting with all the luggage, and my wife's there with my son, who just starts crying, and some old woman gets up, doesn't speak any English, and she points to my wife and just goes like this. She says lots of stuff that I don't understand and goes like this. And my wife, I just go. She goes into the car and starts yelling at the men sitting down. And two of them got up so that she could sit down and put Duncan laying down on the next one.
Oh, nice.
And then she goes, manja, feed your son, right? And that's that type of world, that type of story, that type of love. Like, here's a mom. This is your job. You have to take care of your son. The son is important, right? Your kids are important.
Yeah.
That's where she would love to live. For me, Silicon Valley, I like Salt Lake City. I don't know the temperature well enough throughout the year. I love living in Northern California.
Uh-huh.
It's warm enough throughout the year. If I wanted snow, I could drive to it. There's lots of business, lots of activity. I continue to grow. So I think I'm happy enough to be living where I want to live.
Good.
And then if my wife, like I said, if she had her druthers, we'd live in Europe and then where though, we've been toying with that idea for a while.
Beautiful. All right. So with all the conversations that you've had with so many significant and successful individuals, who's left on the bucket list? Who would you like to sit down with next?
Oh, it's hard to put names on it. I've met so many cool people in the world. I'm interested in somebody who wants to do the same thing I'm doing.
Okay.
And that's tipping the scale between those that are credible and those that are dubious, and wants to make a stand for that. And the thing is, I haven't put my arms around it. Elon Musk would be super fun to talk to. I sat down and talked to Jeff Bezos at some point in time. I was Reid Hoffman, Konstantin Gerlich, the founders of LinkedIn. My firm was hired to publish the first book on LinkedIn. I've had a lot of great conversations.
Yeah.
And so I've not found that person. If you're listening to this and you know that person or that firm that really is focused on incredibly doing the right thing for their clients. I've asked ChatGPT and I've got ideas of who to go to, but if you know of somebody, I would love it. I'm talking to the audience. I'd love an introduction. I'm really open. And so as opposed to a very focused person, typically I think in terms of tipping the scale, credible and dubious, I think of three areas I could play: business, religion, government, right? And we have dubiousness in all three areas. I know business most, so that's the place I'm playing.
Yeah.
But if it turns out that it's government or religion, I'd be open to a fun conversation. And if what I can do is be of support in such a way where I could help transform the billions of people that need to be transformed to live in the world where we really are of service to others and live, act, play credibly. And otherwise, we're going to be put out of business by the things we're creating. Whether it's some form of AI or something else, if we don't figure out how to do a better job of living, we may not be around to be able to live.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. I'm going to now give you the opportunity to pick a topic. I'm going to give you some questions or themes that you can pick, and we're going to see what we can go on and discuss here. So the first one's faith. The second one is music. The third is family. The fourth is workaholic versus balanced life. Which would you like to talk about?
Those are all great topics. Can I make a fifth?
Make a fifth.
The fifth was, I was so enjoying your intrigue and understanding of the accounting profession.
Okay.
So let me make a statement. Sorry, if you don't mind, I'd rather pick there because here's what I'd like to say. Let's assume everything goes the way in potentially a negative way for the accounting firms.
All right.
Where we now have firms like whether it's Quicken or Microsoft 365 with OpenAI integrated in or others that replace the need for many accountants today. So how do we fix that? How do we make sure that this profession is still relevant in the way that it needs to be relevant? And I'll go into something else. I think work-life balance is a great one. So we'll do that next. All right. But tell me about that for you. What do you think? What is the magic formula?
So in the accounting profession for years, there's been statements suggesting that there are too few people entering the profession, going into college, getting their accounting degrees. And so there's been this concern that there are more people retiring than there are entering the profession. And so already we've been acknowledging that there's too few accounting professionals in the profession to help the business world. And so that's, first of all, a challenge that we're facing. So if we could somehow automate, systematize, simplify the accounting process so that fewer people are needing to be involved, well, we're addressing a need that already exists. The second thing that I'd point out is when you go back in history and look at, say, in the 1970s when spreadsheets became available, or you look in the 80s and 90s as accounting software started to come on the scene, as we've simplified the accounting process, taking it from writing down in journals and ledgers to now I can basically within a software system pick a date range and run a P&L for that period of time, all of a sudden people want to suggest that those systems, those automations are going to negatively impact the professional. What I felt is that they've actually freed the individual who is the accounting professional to focus on more of what matters most in the accounting. It's not the historical, it's not the recording of the transaction. My job as a bookkeeper, as an accountant, as a tax preparer isn't filling in the forms. It's more understanding the accounting process and how to actually not manipulate, but use it to actually help the business be more successful. Noticing trends, margins, different things that the business owner may not be able to experience or notice as they're running the business day to day. So do I feel that the accounting profession is threatened? I don't. Do I feel it's changing? I do. I feel that it's very much going to evolve, but that evolution, I don't feel it's as quick as many people think. There was talk years ago of what's called blockchain, of how it was going to systematize the accounting process. It's really yet to be seen as people thought it might. So it's a little slower in the evolution. And I think that there's still opportunity for the accounting professional. And like I said earlier, I think it's more not the wealth of information that the accountant has. I think it's more they're learning the right questions to ask so that they can use the technologies that exist. The business owner at the end of the day, I still feel that even though you suggested they'll be happily wanting to talk to an avatar, that will come. But right now, I still feel that they want to talk to a person because at some point, the business owner doesn't want to interact with the avatar to train it, teach it, to set it up. They're going to want the accountant to do that.
To set that up.
That's right.
Yeah, what you're talking about, I'm going to summarize what you say.
Uh-huh.
Then I want to add a point that is here. You want to make accounting sexy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to, which will then encourage more people to come into. Because if the number crunching and the record keeping and all that can now be done almost automatically.
Yeah.
Now it's about the interpretation and singing the music that the actual business owner is singing.
Yeah.
That's where the concert lies. Roger, during the .com days, I was typically going around to CEOs and VP of operations, and I was letting them know that there was this new technology called the internet.
Yeah.
And I was physically kicked out of the offices of 2 buildings when they said the internet was just a fad. Like, hey, we're going to talk directly to our customers. We're going to have a subcomponent manufacturers drop ship our products to our Mitchell, that's not going to happen. Get out, right? And I'm going to call the .com days pre-internet. It was when we were learning what it was about. Everyone got excited. Valuations went high. There were a couple of companies that came out of it that are just humongous today. We know what Facebook is and Amazon and so on.
Yeah.
Many companies are dead by the roadside. I'm going to say today we're pre-AI. I was sitting in a meeting last Saturday and thinking about the conversations people were having. And this was a meeting of 15 people in the room. I was taking what they were saying and putting that into languaging. I actually wrote 3 articles and 1 jingle using ChatGPT in that same hour period where I was still engaging with other people when it was time for me to engage. 3 articles, 1 jingle.
Yeah.
Now I read through the articles and the jingle, and I do need to make some small changes because they're not 100% me.
Correct.
But I couldn't have written 3 articles and 1 jingle maybe ever in a day, certainly not in an hour.
But here's what I'll give you as I think a very important understanding of where I'm coming from. That's great that the tool exists for you to get those 3 articles and 1 jingle. The problem is to presume that it would just spontaneously create those.
No, I had to ask the right question.
Bingo.
It comes back to, so I have trained myself. And by the way, it's one of the things, we have a 5-day challenge now on how to become a prompt engineer.
Yes.
Right? Because and the reason I made it 5 days, originally I was going to make a 30-day challenge. I made it 5 days because I want in 5 days to somebody to go, I'm different. And all you have to do is train your mind to think differently.
Yes.
And I can do that in 5 days.
Yes.
5 days of somewhere between 5 to 30 minutes a day.
So I'll give you an example. I was just in a meeting yesterday. We were talking to someone that's involved in the marketing for our company. And this individual had spent, obviously, just because of the conversation, tons of time, I dare say hours, on a project that I had asked them to work on. They came back and were delivering to me something that was totally off the mark. Very much off the mark. They had put time into creating headlines, copy, and they were very proud of what they had done. Totally missed the mark. And I specifically said, do this, pull up ChatGPT, and I need you to type in this sentence. Typed it in, voila, the answer came out. And I said, great, that's what we're going to use. Okay, type in this sentence. Okay, boom. Within just basically 30 minutes, I was able to take what this individual had spent hours theoretically doing, and I was able to get what I needed. What that person should have been able to do is take and ask those questions. I didn't care whether these ideas and the information came from their mind or the computer. I didn't care. I needed the answer. And the answer was, how do you quickly get to this? I'm going to pay that individual, regardless of the time, a certain dollar amount. Their job was made tons easier. Well, guess what I got the day after? The day after, I got all the right information that I was asking for initially, but they didn't have to work on it. It was clear. What they did is they left that meeting, went and used that tool, asked the right questions, and delivered to me something that I was very impressed with, but I know it wasn't them. Now, I did have to go through and massage a few things. You're right. It does take a little bit of last minute revising, but at the end of the day, I'm happy. I'm happy. I got what I needed and I wanted, and it didn't have to be some laborious thing that they had to slave over. I just wanted the end result.
So let's apply that to the accounting profession.
Yeah.
If you just need to, if all the information, i.e. the books and all the data, go into whatever the AI tool is, and now you have to say is, what do I do differently in the next month to generate a income statement that looks differently? Or how do I play with the assets on the balance sheet in such a way of, and now the words didn't sound right, so I'm gonna retract that. I want to use the word play, but not in a negative, dubious way. So I want to be careful on that. But what would we do to shift things around in such a way where we're getting the right results that we need? Either what companies should we be buying? What should we be doing? Should we be leasing versus buying the things that we're doing? How is that going to affect us? You could ask all those questions, right? So it goes back to asking the right questions. And by the way, the right questions today are not the right questions tomorrow.
Correct.
Right? So it goes back to, we'll go back to the living and working. If at the end of the day, you're done with your job and all you want to do is sit around and do nothing, that doesn't sound like a good work-life balance, right? To me, what sounds like a good work-life balance is having fun during the day. And I can't imagine anything better than asking good questions. I mean, to me, it's in a field that you have expertise. In that field, asking the right questions and getting just spectacular answers. When we did our last Ultimate Credibility Bootcamp, one of my team members said, "Hey, Mitchell, you just wrote a jingle. You should sing it to us." And by the way, that's not normally me, right? And then one of the people in the boot camp said, "All right, Mitchell, yeah, you should sing it." Now I couldn't find the jingle. So because I had trained ChatGPT of who I am, I wrote the jingle on the fly.
Uh-huh.
And then I had the audience members and me sing the jingle, which was just a ton of fun. The words, before I did it, I read through it. The words were phenomenal. For me, I'm not a jingle writer. I don't believe I could have ever written that. Maybe if I spent a day or a week, maybe.
Uh-huh.
This happened in minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And then we were able to sing. I haven't seen that video yet. My team has not embarrassed me yet with that, but I'm sure at some point in time it'll go out there. And that was fun. So I think the work-life balance thing, if you can figure out a way to automate the stuff that you just don't like doing and focus on the stuff that's creative and fun, and a lot of it is asking the right questions. Once again, let's going back to the servant leadership of the accounting profession. If your job is to love what you do and serve your clients, there's no better way than to actually show up in such a way that you and your people love what you do, and you show it, and you're adding incremental value, and you're playing the music that your members are playing. To me, that seems like a great life.
Very good. Very good. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to actually summarize our conversation and come back to you for a final thought.
Cool.
And for our listeners, give them some things to consider. So for everyone listening to the episode, I want you to go to the episode description, and there you're going to find this course that Mitchell and I have been discussing that we started earlier in the discussion, mentioning that's the CPOP exercise. It's there that you're actually going to find how you can also get free access to this CPOP exercise and go through the course to see what it is you can do in order to create your own. And at the same time, in the episode description, you're going to find some other resources that I'm sure you'll want to take advantage of. So take a moment and go there for that information. As a summary of the conversation, here are a few things that really stood out to me. When we started, it was basically this whole idea of credibility. It was Mitchell's journey to coming to what that really means and why it matters, how we can be more credible in what we do, and how it applies to the accounting space, how we can be more credible in the relations with our clients, in our communication as to what it is we do for a living. All of these things based on integrity, as he was pointing out, really become quite important to us, because as we both externally and internally deal with who we are and what we're doing, we need to be basically integrous and credible in everything that we're doing. The other thing that really stood out to me with regards to this conversation was the fact that he was showing how this really goes across all parts of our life, and how with ChatGPT, we can really see how we can evolve and still stay relevant with our customers. As accounting professionals, I think this is going to be a conversation that comes up again and again, and I expect in the coming months and years, we're going to see new or better applications of its use. But in order for us to remain relevant, we've got to remember that we are the ones that are going to be clicking those keyboards. We're going to be ones asking the right questions. We're going to be the ones now taking that information and try and understand how it's applicable to our clients, our own selves, and at the end of the day, see through some of the misinformation, the hallucinations that are happening in that explanation that the AIs are producing. The other thing I wanted to just draw attention to is I really felt that Mitchell did a great job of here at the end, just showing how this is also relevant with the conversations we're having with different people. It's that curiosity, right? It's basically taking the time to really have fun with the work that we're doing and not feel threatened, but actually embracing it. And so that's one of the things that I'd really want to take away from this conversation. So Mitchell, what would you like to also add and end with?
Roger, that was so cool. Thank you. I'm going to watch that piece again or listen to that piece again. The industrial age was the opportunity for business owners to be able to fine tune what people did. And that's when the person the Popeye who would torque the wrench on the wheel got into play. That's when accountants did their thing and they only did accountants. That's when salespeople did their thing. And that's when we started labeling some professions as, oh, you don't want to listen to salespeople or marketing people. And they had their own different worlds. We now, with this technology, have the opportunity to recraft everything. What does it mean to be an accountant tomorrow will be so much different than what it means today. And the most simplest way moving forward is being curious and being of service to your clients. It really is that simple. And I think what I mentioned to you, Roger, before, and I forgot, I said there were 3 professions we're focused on to start, accounting, lawyers, and I forgot the third one before. I was so embarrassed. It is authors who just finished their successful campaign, bestseller campaign, right? Because you have this asset called a book. What do you do next, right? And what it means is you live your life. You live your life in such a way where you could have this tool that's used for success for accountants. You live your life in such a way where you have new tools entering the stream. You could fight them, in which case you'll be not relevant, or you could start playing with them by making yourself more relevant. And so, by the way, Roger, I'm talking to the camera, but I'm going to talk to you for a second. I have a 5-day challenge. It's specifically generic. I'm rewriting it now for authors and probably for speakers. I have somebody else who asked for it for speakers. Next after that is accountants. So it one of those really simple things. So maybe we'll put that in the notes and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. It's just how do you change the thinking process of accountants in such a way where you get to ask the right questions? And I think that's what we need to do is ask the right questions. How do we be relevant? How do we show up credibly in person and also when we're not in person? How do you show up credibly in the first 10, 20, 30 seconds when people see you? And that is, I'm touching that thing. It's when you take your CPOP and it shows up everywhere. Not the words of the CPOP, but the feeling of the playground you play in goes everywhere. And we'll make sure that's in the notes too. That Ultimate Credibility Bootcamp we talked about, that'll be in the notes too. And I guess I'll leave with one last thing. I think I mentioned this to you. We now have educational units that one gets when they take the Ultimate Credibility Bootcamp. So you and I will work on how we can integrate that and play with that more in terms of what we're doing. And so I'm honored to be here. Sorry, I'll look at you again. I'm honored to be here. I love your summary, and thank you so much for giving me the chance to say hello and hang out with you and play in person.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, please and thank you. I would like that additional information. We'll definitely put it in the show notes. But this has been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed the discussion. This has been great. And for my listeners, I just want to point out that for more information about this and other topics, definitely make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And in subscribing, set the notifications so that you get those follows, likes, whatever the case may be, so that you can actually get notified each and every week when one of these episodes is released. I also encourage you with the subscription, go back and actually listen to previous episodes, listen to those other experts that we've had on the show, find out what those things are that you need to be doing in your business to have the premier accounting firm in your area. Also, with all of this, if you haven't already, register for GrowCon. GrowCon, as you know, is the annual event that we have for business owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses to come interact with your peers, learn about business, but most importantly, hear from the experts. And I encourage you to register and join us for the next annual event. You definitely do not want to miss it. And then regarding all these principles, things that we're discussing here, definitely give Universal Accounting Center a call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. It's here. We're happy to discuss how to learn more about these principles, apply them in your business, actually take these things and see how you can improve what you're doing personally and professionally. And lastly, if you'd like to, you can also visit us online. You can go to universalaccountingschool.com and there find more information about the various trainings, certifications, coaching, and support that we offer to help you have the premier accounting firm in your area. And with all that being said, always remember this: if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and be safe out there.